If you are an entrepreneur who is struggling with your mindset, then please watch this video. This is my personal story about how I suffered and struggled to overcome my own mind as an entrepreneur, and why I do the work that I do with entrepreneurs, which is to support you as the entrepreneur to win the psychological battle with your mind so that you're able to have the business breakthrough that you desire. My name is Vineet. Prior to this video, I was planning the video out. I was stopped in my tracks by a quote that I read, and it went like this. I'm going to read it, right? It said, "If it makes you feel better, almost everyone is experiencing emotional distress, and at any given moment, they hide it from everyone." I guess that's a great interlude. We live in a world of social media where we are bombarded with so-called perfection. We live in an Instagram world. We live in a YouTube world. I get it, right? That aesthetics matter. But what matters more than aesthetics is authenticity. Hopefully this video is going to inspire you, and I'll be able to share candidly what I've been through. Because when I get on these videos, there is a pressure that I feel to want to present myself in a certain way that hopefully you will like me, hopefully you will accept me, hopefully I will belong. Yet, at what expense? And the expense at which it plays out is that I end up giving up my authenticity. I end up trading the truth that sits in my heart in order to be liked and loved and accepted. So give yourself a few minutes to watch this video because it will support you. So by the end of this video, hopefully you will be inspired enough to be able to realize that you can conquer your mind as an entrepreneur, therefore getting the outcomes and the results that you want in your business. So without further ado, let's jump in. I wanted to be an entrepreneur since the age of 16. I read Richard Branson's book, Losing My Virginity, and I was hooked. At 16, 17 years old, I was hooked. And all I wanted to do was to be an entrepreneur. I was obsessed. Yet, 10 years down the line, I still hadn't done anything to make virtually no money as an entrepreneur. I had tried a couple of businesses. I tried a jewelry business in the nightclub industry. I lost a few £1,000s, didn't really come of anything. And I tried some, you could call it some newspaper businesses, right? And what I mean by that is little things, little enterprises, tiny things. And nothing really came to fruition. And I guess the first thing that I really want to share here is my first step into true entrepreneurship happened when I discovered the path of what I now call the path of individualization. So Dr. James Hollis, you can search him on YouTube. He's a young psychologist, I believe, and he talks about the path of individuation. Now that's what I call it now, but back then I didn't know what it meant. My first little bit of success that I started having was when I recognized the path of entrepreneurship that would work for me. I recognized the business that was going to be true for me, because business is just a fancy word for putting out value in the world. But I had to first discover what was my innate gifts, what were my innate talents, and that was then to be expressed through a business. And so the first point here is this, that as entrepreneurs, when I often am speaking to entrepreneurs before they join my program, when I have conversations with entrepreneurs that are struggling with their own psychology, sometimes, and this may be your struggle, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, is often we're in the wrong business. Often entrepreneurs are in the wrong business, or at least need to pivot into the right business. Or shall I say, a false business versus a true business. And what I mean by that is we are all called towards a path that's true for us, a path that's expansive. And as Dr. James Hollis says, the path of individuation. And so the first question to ask is, are you in a business that's true for you? Does it make you come alive? Does it expand you? Right? And ultimately, the question that you want to answer is, why are you in this business? Why are you in it? Because as part of my work, something which I teach is called a negative vision versus a positive. And a negative vision is essentially you trying to get away from a negative scenario. And a lot of entrepreneurs start things because they believe it will give them adulation. They believe that they will be recognized by the world, or that they'll have fame, etc. Nothing wrong with those things, but your why will indicate whether the business that you're getting into is actually true for you or not. And a true business is something that comes from something you love, something that you feel passionate about, something that brings value to the world, that makes a difference, that's wholesome for everyone, including yourself. So that's the first step. Are your struggles with your mind, the root struggle may be that you're in the wrong business. That's the first thing. And you want to therefore find a true calling, a true business. You know, online, when you're online, you see so many experts telling you what businesses can do well right now, what the economy is ready to, you know, what sort of businesses can do well in the current economy, etc. And there is a time and a place to understand what will work in the market, what the audience wants, what does the market want. There's a time and a place for that. But before you get to that place, you want to be able to uncover and coax what is a business that's true for you, that aligns to you, that resonates for you. That's the first step. I discovered that the first time I made any significant money through business was when I was holding, what I basically discovered was that I loved learning about the mind, psychology, spirituality, why are we here, the big questions, philosophy. I loved everything to do with the human potential. That was what I loved. So after entrepreneurship, or alongside it, the other thing that I loved was everything to do with the mind. And when I uncovered that, when I started to help myself with these teachings and learnings, and particularly what it did for me was I used to have a speech impediment. When I discovered how the mind works, I was able to heal my speech impediment. As a result, that was my first glimmer of light. And I started to run these workshops. They were free of charge in London, Piccadilly Circus. I used to run these workshops free of charge. And I would run a couple every month, 2-3 hours, right? And I would invite people, I would put them on to, there was a website called Meetup, and people would turn up. No more than 5 or 6 people at a time, free of charge. And I was passionate. I felt alive. I felt it was my calling to teach this work, to teach about the mind. A lady came up to me and said to me, "You're my coach." That changed everything, because I wasn't looking to coach people. I wasn't looking to necessarily do one-to-one mentoring or coaching or training with people. But this lady felt something quite deep, and she literally went across the road to the bank. I remember Royal Bank of Scotland, and she took £500 cash out and she gave it to me for the first, I don't know, I can't remember what the proposal was, but I basically blurted a figure. And that was the first time I went, wow, the life brought it to me. And so often life wants something from you as an entrepreneur. If you've got a calling to be an entrepreneur and you're drawn to it, you could ask the question, what does life want from me as an entrepreneur? What does life want? And that will allow you to get your ego out of the way. And therefore you become a vessel for the work that you're truly here to do. Okay, so I hope that serves you. Yet, this is now where the story goes downhill. Hopefully this is now where you'll really be able to relate. So after signing up a few clients, at this point I still had a job. This is about 2008, 2009. That is where it went all downhill. That is where the mind kicked in. I had a bunch of clients and they were paying me. I was probably making £1,000, £1,500 a month, pounds, not a lot. 2010, I quit my job. I couldn't take it anymore to work for anyone else. I wanted to make this work. But what this spanned was 10 years of struggle. From 2010 to 2020, probably past even COVID. After COVID, in the last few years, I really turned a massive corner. But probably for about a decade, I struggled with my own mindset. I deeply struggled. I would sit at my desk and I was trying to promote my training business, my coaching business, you know, being an entrepreneur as far as having a business that would help other people with their mind. One thing which I discovered, and this is important, is that as you get onto the path of truth, you will discover your skills and talents. What I discovered was that I had an innate ability to be able to read between the lines. When prospective clients would get on calls with me, I could diagnose what was happening unconsciously. And what tends to happen for us entrepreneurs is what we think is happening is not always happening. And that is what I tend to diagnose when I get onto calls with entrepreneurs. their struggles in their business are reflective of what's happening within them, within their own mind. But what they think is the root struggle is not. The unconscious is a hidden phenomena, right? It's called unconscious for a reason, because it's not conscious. And so what I discovered was I had the ability to be able to intuitively sense and see and feel what was really happening in their unconscious mind. Now that was a breakthrough, because I recognized I could help people more and more. What I didn't tell all those clients across the 10 years where I struggled between 2010 and 2020 was that my own mind was against me. I was helping others, but I struggled behind the scenes. One of the biggest struggles that I had, and I started this video with this little topic, was the need to belong. It was so treacherous. And what I mean by that is that there's a doctor called Dr. Gabor Mate. He talks a lot about the need to belong, or what we have, the need for attachment. And as human beings, because we grow up in families, we have the survival need, right? We need to belong in order to survive. So often we will give up aspects of ourselves in order to survive. And that means that we have this dysfunctional need to belong. That belonging compromises who we are, gives up our authenticity, gives up our truth in order to belong as part of a unit. And I struggled with that big time, because as a child growing up, if my parents didn't understand what I was doing, or if they didn't like what I was doing, they would shut it down. And the removal of love was happening. Now, I don't know to what extent that my parents removed the love, but I definitely perceived it as the love being removed. Being a child who was sensitive, and I always have been sensitive. This is why I do the work I do, because I can sense a lot. That sensitivity made me put myself in a little box in order to be liked and loved. That conditioning had carried on with me for years, and therefore it affected my business. As I built my business, the thing that I struggled was if I do something, if I take an action, or if I make a decision, what if it's disapproved of? What if other people don't like what I do? And that may have been sales, when I was trying to sell my products and services. It would really make me suffer. It really would. And so a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, who I train, they have to be unhooked from their need to belong in society. Because often as entrepreneurs, we are, not always, but we're at the cutting edge of something. We're bringing something into the world that could further humanity, hopefully, right? That can bring up all sorts of fears. The fear of rejection, fear of failure, and they're all connected to the need to belong. One of the things that I do with clients is I supported myself. And one of those tools to be able to let go of the need to belong, one of these tools that I developed over the years was a tool called emotional acceptance. And basically what it does, it neutralizes the emotional residue that you carry that makes you dysfunctionally need to belong. When you're compromising yourself, what it does is it unhooks you from that need to belong. Because ultimately we are whole as beings, yet that wholeness can only develop when we're paying homage to our authenticity, to the truth that arises. And then as I worked through the need to belong, it took a decade. It took a decade of work, actually. What I also discovered was massive fear of failure. Like, what I learned from my father was that literally he would say, if you fail, you are beep. Imagine it, right? F word. And I learned I had a dysfunctional awareness of learning. What I discovered was that I believed that learning was meant to be just fruitful. But what is learning? Learning is about when a child learns to walk, they stand up, they walk, they fall over. So you're going to get things wrong and you're going to get things right. Success and failure go hand in hand as you're learning. But I saw it as failure because I had learned from my parents, that, particularly my father, that if I fell over, that if I made a mistake, then I was royally effed. Right? So a lot of my work has been to help entrepreneurs like myself to overcome this fear. Because we live in a time right now which, if you look at the macro level, there's a lot of anxiety in the air. I think there's a lot of systems that are not working in the world. There's a lot of structures that are falling apart. There's a lot of change. So therefore, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, right? And anxiety is a large part of that, helping entrepreneurs to navigate through anxiety. Because anxiety is just is a fancy way of talking about fear, right? Feel anxious. Now, I always say to entrepreneurs that I serve, that I train, as I say to myself, if you're free of anxiety, imagine what's possible, right? Because a lot of what we fear is not real, it's not out there. It's imagined in our own minds, right? And where I'm really getting to is, in the last few years, I pivoted from from training people to overcome their own minds, to win the psychological battle with their minds. I pivoted to only serving entrepreneurs. And the reason that I did that was because I had spent a good 15 years struggling with my own mindset. And so what I developed, because of what I've had to overcome, I developed what I call the Overcome Yourself entrepreneur's process. And that process is all about, what I wanted to do was to elevate the game in entrepreneurship as far as mindset is concerned. I almost see the word mindset as quite a meek pop culture word. It's a personal development word. People don't really understand how the mind works. And with all due respect to other people, it comes to me naturally, and naturally in teaching it, but it's not been natural in application to me. You know, it's easy to teach others, but to teach yourself is just another whole game, right? I wanted to leave mindset behind and really teach some elevated components. And that is where psychology comes in, to really support entrepreneurs to win the psychological battle with their minds. I feel after years of struggle, I am qualified to be able to support entrepreneurs because of my own struggles. And I wanted this video to showcase that if on this journey, I now have a relatively successful business, right? Where I train entrepreneurs, right? So I am an entrepreneur in my own right, because I have to work on the business. But when I'm working in the business, I'm training entrepreneurs. I'm working with their mind. What I do with entrepreneurs is to understand what are the conflicts that are occurring in your mind. What are you struggling with your mind, right? Because ultimately that's playing out in your business. Because I remember there's this quote, right, by Albert Einstein, that goes, the level of consciousness at which a problem was created is not the level of consciousness at which it can be resolved. So when you are experiencing a problem with your mind, when you're struggling, when you are experiencing that your psychology is defeating you, then what we have to do is to rise above that. And there are ways that we can rise above it. We can win that psychological battle. And when we do that, it gets reflected in our business. I, for 10 years, struggled as a 5-figure entrepreneur. That 6-figure entrepreneur I only gave birth to him. And I really don't like to use figures, to be honest. And I don't know why it even came out, because there's a lot of things. There are so much talk online about 6-figure entrepreneurs and 7-figure entrepreneurs and 8 figures and 9 figures and 200,000 figures, whatever. That's not the key here. It's fulfillment. It's living the life that's true to you. And sometimes, earning £70,000 or $80,000 is enough, because it gives you the life that you truly want in your heart. So it's not about figures. But in order for me to break through, because I wanted to make more money, what I had to do was to change who I was. I had to shift my identity, right? And that's what I worked on. I actually have got a client right now who builds businesses on YouTube, and he had a dip in his business. And really what we uncovered was that at an unconscious level, he felt guilty for being successful. So shifting that, and ultimately the journey for an entrepreneur or the journey that I take entrepreneurs on, something that I've taken myself on, which ultimately is, your business is where it is. And maybe you feel it's stuck, maybe you feel it's oscillating, or it's plateaued in some shape or form. And if you trace that back, there's something going on within you that is plateaued, oscillated, that is stuck, right? We have to shift your own psychology that's occurring within you. And therefore, when we've shifted your own psychology, and therefore you can then see it pan out, you will see it impact your business. And ultimately, I'm the guy that is working on your psychology as an entrepreneur. My expertise is not business and entrepreneurship. I built a business, but my expertise is in understanding your mind, to be able to give you insights and to support you to have insights and awareness about the way your psychology is playing out that maybe you don't have awareness of. And awareness is the first step to change. So yeah, if you are struggling in your own psychology, and therefore your business is having a mare, as they say in the UK, in England, so your business has plateaued, maybe it's stuck, you're oscillating in the business, and therefore your mind's getting in the way, let's see whether we can genuinely support you to actually break through, not using pop culture psychology, not using little mindset hacks and tricks. That's not, generally doesn't work. This is a long-term process because your identity has been the way it has since your youth. And it's going to take a moment to shift your identity. It really is. But if we're sincere and if we create a container, almost like an incubator that genuinely supports you to shift your identity, overcome your psychological battle with your mind, then you will see it impact your business and you will see your business prosper as a result. Now, that's what's happened with me, and it can happen with you too. But it's not going to happen through clickbait psychology. It's just not going to work. Or clickbait mindset. Not going to work. So if this has resonated, then please do like, share, and subscribe. But more so, what I'd like to say is there is a link in the description box. If you would like to have a conversation, you would like to apply for the Overcome Yourself Entrepreneurs Program, then we can have a conversation. There's a bunch of questions. There's a link. You can answer those questions. As long as we're the right fit, we'll jump on a call and I'll genuinely serve you to really help you gain awareness of where you are stuck in your own mind and to help you to see light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, that's what I really want to say. And there's also a link, there's a WhatsApp link which I provide, a business link. And if you want to share with me what's going on for you, you can use that link. I've got some freebies which can support you too. So I look forward to sharing more videos with you that are more candid, that are more honest. I look forward to hearing from you. My name is Vineet. Thank you for listening. Over and out.